'Cause I got time while she's got freedom. 'Cause when a heart breaks, no, it don't break even.
On May 27, 2025, the America's Got Talent stage became the epicenter of a story that would capture hearts across the nation when Jourdan Blue, a soulful singer from the music-soaked streets of New Orleans, stepped under the blinding lights with nothing but a microphone and a lifetime of scars. His choice of song, Break Even by the Script, wasn't just a cover. It was a confession, a pouring out of years marked by hardship, uncertainty, and resilience. Behind the controlled power of his voice was a man who had walked through storms many never survive. A man who carried the weight of a terrorist attack earlier that year near the very street where he often performed. An event that had left him shaken but determined. As the first notes rang out, the room shifted, judges leaned forward, the audience held its breath, and the raw emotion began to spill into every corner of the theater. When the final note hung in the air, Howie Mandel's eyes glistened, and without hesitation, his hand slammed the golden buzzer, sending golden confetti raining down on Jourdan like the validation he had been chasing for years. But while millions watching at home saw the moment as the beginning, it was really just the visible peak of a climb that had started long before the cameras ever rolled. From the moment Jourdan's voice cracked with emotion, there was no mistaking that this was more than an audition. It was a life story told in melody. His rendition of Break Even carried weight that came from lived experience. Every lyric seeming to pull from the nights he'd spent alone, the dreams he'd almost abandoned, and the fears that had haunted him since that near brush with tragedy on the streets he called home. The judges didn't just hear a performance. They felt the years of pain, love, and perseverance layered into every phrase. Even those who didn't know his backstory sensed it, an unspoken truth radiating from the way he gripped the microphone, the way his voice swelled then broke at the edges, the way his eyes refused to look away from the crowd as if to say, "This is me, all of me." The silence that followed the final chorus was deafening, and when Howie Mandel hit that golden buzzer, it wasn't just a ticket to the next round. It was a national acknowledgement that sometimes the most powerful performances come from the deepest wounds. Jourdan Blue's journey begins in New Orleans, Louisiana, a city where music runs through the streets as freely as the Mississippi River. Born on November 27, 2001, he grew up surrounded by the city's vibrant culture, its brass bands and gospel choirs shaping his earliest memories. His mother, a police officer, and his father, a lawyer, gave him a disciplined upbringing. But behind closed doors, life wasn't picture perfect. By the time Jourdan was 16, cracks in his home life had widened into chasms, and he found himself with nowhere to go. Nights were spent bouncing between friends' couches, staying after hours at work, and on more desperate occasions, curling up in bathroom stalls for warmth. In the chaos, the stability and love he needed came from one unexpected source: his grandfather, offering him not just a roof, but a renewed sense of belonging. His grandfather also deepened Jourdan's connection to music, reminding him of the days he sang in church choirs and performed in school plays. It was in those moments, strumming a guitar in his grandfather's living room, that music shifted from a pastime into a lifeline, a way to process the hurt and find a reason to keep going. Life on the edge of homelessness is a reality few can truly understand. And for Jourdan, it was a crash course in resilience. At 16, with his world stripped of stability, he learned how to survive on scraps of opportunity, borrowing space on friends' floors, sleeping in break rooms after late shifts, and keeping a backpack ready in case he had to move again. The constant uncertainty hardened him, but also pushed him toward the one thing that never failed him: music. His grandfather's home became his refuge, and in those walls, the sound of his voice began to evolve into something richer, more intentional. He poured himself into learning not just how to sing, but how to perform, how to make every lyric carry meaning. Those years of instability, instead of breaking him, became the foundation for the emotional authenticity that would later define his performances. Music wasn't just his passion, it was his proof that no matter how far he fell, he could climb back. When the 2021 pandemic lockdowns brought the world to a standstill, Jourdan found himself with more time than money and more emotion than he knew what to do with. He began writing original songs, his lyrics pulling from a deep well of personal history, and recording stripped-down performances in his bedroom. Posting them online wasn't a career plan, it was therapy. But one night, a friend took it a step further, sending one of his clips to producers at American Idol. Within weeks, Jourdan was auditioning over Zoom, securing a spot in season 20. It could have been his big break, but when his segment never aired on television, it became another heartbreak on a growing list. Instead of letting the disappointment end his dreams, Jourdan used it as fuel. If television wouldn't tell his story, he decided, then he'd take it directly to the people, one street corner at a time. Bourbon Street became Jourdan's stage, though it was far from glamorous. From 8 at night until 2 or 3 in the morning, he stood in the humid New Orleans air, his voice cutting through the drunken chatter and the brass band chaos. Some nights, crowds gathered, recording him on their phones and dropping a few dollars into his guitar case. Other nights, police told him to move along, and the earnings barely covered food for his girlfriend and their young son, Jax. But no matter the take-home pay, every performance was a lesson in endurance, a demonstration to his son that chasing a dream is always worth it, even when the world doesn't seem to notice. Those nights forged him into the kind of performer who can hold an audience in the palm of his hand, whether it's a handful of tourists on a noisy street or millions of viewers on national television. When his AGT audition finally aired, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Clips of his performance spread across TikTok, racking up millions of views as strangers from around the world shared his story. By mid-2025, Jourdan's social media following had exploded into the hundreds of thousands, with fans rallying around his authenticity and grit. His street performances, once a lifeline for survival, became viral sensations, proving that even the smallest stages can launch the biggest moments. Yet through it all, Jourdan stayed grounded, still showing up to sing, still living the same grind, still letting his music speak louder than the hype. Jourdan Blue's music defies easy categorization, blending the soul of gospel, the storytelling of pop, and the raw emotion of lived experience. His songs don't just entertain, they connect, touching on love, loss, fear, and hope in a way that makes listeners feel seen. Now, as he prepares for the AGT live shows, he stands on the brink of a career that could finally match the scale of his talent. But fame isn't a finish line. His journey is still measured in steps, in songs, in nights spent giving his all to an audience, whether in a packed theater or under the streetlights of New Orleans. And with every performance, one truth becomes clearer. Jourdan Blue isn't just singing to be heard. He's singing to survive, to inspire, and to prove that no matter where you start, the music can carry you somewhere better.